listening to Give God 90, where we're not afraid of the tough biblical questions, because we will dig through the language, the culture, and the history to find the truth revealed in the words of our Creator.
I wanna see the light.
Thank you for letting us spend some time with you today. My name is Jerry Mitchell. Sitting next to me is the confused Myra.
Hello, everyone.
Confused because I will tell you right up front that we are recording this about a day early because Thursday happens to be Thanksgiving Day in the United States, and we're going to talk about that here in a minute. So when we record it early, there's things that we don't get to do. You can still comment on this if you want to in the chat. It will be available to you if you have that free account, but we'll get it not live, right? We'll get notified, and then we'll be able to respond. It just feels kind of funny when you get to sit here and talk to yourself. So instead of having people chime in, but we wanted to keep it on track and keep everything going. And the message tonight really has a lot to do with Thanksgiving. It has all to do with Thanksgiving, actually. Don't forget, if you're new to us, we appreciate that. And you can visit givegod90.com. Check us out there. You can actually find the books. You can't buy them from our website. But if you go to a local bookstore, if you have that opportunity and that luxury, go to a local bookstore and have them order either Tradition to Truth, One Man's Search for Honest Answers, or God's Universe, God's Rules. And I don't think you'll be disappointed. And don't forget, if you like what you're hearing, the likes and share buttons, they help. If you choose to subscribe to this podcast on whatever platform you're getting it from, that helps other people find us as well. That's one of the things you can do. Takes you about a half a second to do that kind of stuff, and it really adds up for us in the long run. So why are we recording this tonight instead of doing it live like we usually do? Because we're going to have a house full of people probably still tomorrow night when we should be sitting here recording this. So we don't have the luxury of being, what's the word I want to use? Available, maybe. Let's put it this way. If we tried to do this tomorrow night, there would be a whole lot of background noise. There would be a lot of background noise. So that's why we're doing that. We're going to look at Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving is primarily a U.S. holiday. Canada observes it, and there are some other nations that do, just not at the same time. So just kind of keep that in mind. Now, I've spoken about this, I've written about this, but it's something that keeps recurring. A lot of people get confused about Thanksgiving, and we need to revisit this just because of that. Now, in the United States, the tradition is that the feast goes back to 1621. The Puritans had been about a year in the New World, right, on the North American continent, and they celebrated a harvest, and they had their native neighbors with them. And I'm not going to say a good time was had by all, but it was a celebration of harvest. The Puritans were thankful that they had spent that first year and had made some new friends and had a reasonable interaction with the natives. They were looking for a place where they could simply practice their religion in a way that they were not going to be persecuted by the members of the Church of England. So that's what they were looking for. And, the natives didn't care if they sat around and sang songs on a Sunday afternoon. It didn't bother them a bit, right? So for a little while, everybody was happy. There were some tense moments, but for a little while, everyone was happy. And there's a whole lot of tradition a whole lot of legend that surrounds the celebration, some positive, some negative. But the Puritans were not the only ones to hold the feast over the next several years. And in fact, they didn't hold it for many, many years. It was not an ongoing, continuous yearly event. Something most of us don't realize was that prior to the Pilgrims, the Puritans landing, there was a colony in Maine called the Popham Colony that was established in actually 1607 in a place called Phippsburg, Maine. It only lasted until 1608 when they decided they were going to build a boat and sail back to England. In fact, they built the first boat that was built, supposedly, as far as they know, in what became the state of Maine, capable of crossing the Atlantic Ocean. There may have been others, we just don't know about it. And it's kind of interesting that the French attempted a settlement near the St. Croix River in 1604, but that didn't last very long either. But the Puritans were the hardiest, it seems. They stuck around. And eventually in 1846, Sarah Hale, she was a publisher. She published the first of many editorials encouraging the celebration of the Great American Festival. Now, Thanksgiving had been something that had been done off and on. Like I said, it wasn't a continuous annual event from 1621, but off and on, people would choose to sit, they would gather around and give thanks, as people should. But in 1863, in the middle of the Civil War, of the American Civil War, Abraham Lincoln asked all Americans, he didn't specify Northerners or Southerners, whites or blacks, he said all Americans, to set aside the last Thursday in November as a day of Thanksgiving. It wasn't a day to commemorate a victory. It wasn't a day to, it was just a day to, let's just be thankful for what we got. In the middle of the war, the President of the United States set aside one day to say, you know what? I think we ought to be thankful for what we have. In all of the turmoil that was going on, maybe we should ask the question, because there's a lot of things that come up about Thanksgiving nowadays. How is it that Thanksgiving in the United States is offensive to Native Americans or black people? I'm curious about that, because the only way it could be offensive to you, and what I'm going to say may offend you, but the only way it could be offensive to you is if you are completely ignorant of all of the facts about Thanksgiving. If you put your trust and your faith in the traditions and the legends instead of the facts, yeah, it can be offensive to you. And it probably should be not because Thanksgiving is offensive, it's a day of thanks, but because the people who told you to be offended lied to you. It's that simple. We could ask the same thing about Columbus Day. A day that we observe a person who never set foot on the continent, on the mainland continent, for some reason, people now say that he is responsible, and he's Spanish or Portuguese, one or the other. I can't remember exactly. I think he was Spanish. But think about that. Here's a guy from Spain who now all of a sudden gets all the bad rap because he was looking for a trade route and happened to stumble across something more important. something that had probably been known way in his history but had been forgotten. So that's kind of, the answer to those questions is ignorance. People would rather believe the legends and the traditions and the lies than they would the truth and the facts. If you choose to go down that route, there's a book coming out after the first of the year sometime called Inheriting Lies. I suggest you read that. I'm going to tie in some church folks here too, because there's some church folks that don't celebrate Thanksgiving because it's not a biblical holiday. Now, many of these people are more than happy and content to celebrate Christmas, which isn't in the Bible, and Easter, which is kind of a twisted Bible lesson. They're more than happy to celebrate those, but they say, oh, Thanksgiving is a secular holiday. Now, I have said before, when I was young, Thanksgiving was celebrated much differently than it is now. Because when I was, well, let's put it this way, 50 years ago, and we're looking back 50 years, you didn't just sit around and watch football games all day. Your family got together, and you were interactive with each other. You didn't, rush through a meal to go out to buy presents for somebody you don't like, right? You didn't, rush through a meal to do something else. It just wasn't done back then. Let's look at some things here. Mark's going to read a couple passages, and I want you to think about what she's reading, because the people who think that Thanksgiving isn't biblical need to hear this. The folks that we're going to get into a little bit of the history of Thanksgiving in a minute, but you need to hear this as well. Because if you think that Thanksgiving is all about the massacre of the Native Americans and the destruction of their culture, you've got some things that you need to relearn in life. We're all about facts and truth here. I'm not about legends and traditions. So go ahead and start as you read through those.
Colossians 4, 1 and 2. Masters, give unto your servant that which is just and equal, knowing that ye also have a master in heaven. Continue in prayer and watch in the same with thanksgiving. Leviticus 7, 11 through 13. These are the teachings about the fellowship offering a person may offer to the Lord. He may bring the fellowship offering to show his thanks. If he does, he should also bring loaves of bread. They must be made without yeast, mixed with oil. He should bring wafers made without yeast. They must have oil poured over them. He should also bring loaves of fine flour mixed with oil. He must also offer loaves of bread made with yeast. These should be brought with his fellowship offering, which he gives to show thanks. Psalm 69, 29 and 30. I am sad and hurting. God, save me and protect me. I will praise God in a song. I will honor him by giving thanks.
Okay. So, Americans, if you go by the Leviticus recipe, turkey's not on there. Okay, just saying. But look at these instructions that we have. We are to give thanks often, not just once a year, but continually. So how's it possible for somebody to know the truth, who knows the truth? How can they reject a day that a nation would choose to just stop and be thankful? Again, the answer is ignorance. It's easier to believe the lie sometimes than it is to believe the truth. We're going to look at some more, and this is going to hopefully shake some people up.
Psalms 34:1. I will bless the Lord at all times. His praise shall continuously be in my mouth. Psalms 40:16. Let all those that seek thee rejoice, and be glad in thee. Let such as love thy salvation say continually, the Lord be magnified. Luke 24:53. And were continually in the temple, praising and blessing God. Amen. Hebrews 13:15. By him, therefore, let us offer the sacrifice of praise to God continually, that is, the fruit of our lips, giving thanks to his name.
Now, the Luke passage there was talking about the disciples being continually in the temple. In case you were confused, I don't know why that wasn't in, because I didn't include the previous verse. That's why. All right. Now, are you seeing a theme? Instead of joining with the sons of evil and going out in ignorance, tearing down and destroying what the Almighty has said is good, you need to hear the truth. You never turn down an opportunity to offer thanks to our Creator for all of his blessings that he chooses to give us. And that's exactly what some people are doing. They argue, I'm not celebrating Thanksgiving because I refuse to give thanks to my Creator on the same day when everybody's paying tribute to their pagan gods. Think about that statement. What would have happened if Elijah, going back to Elijah now, what would have happened if Elijah would have refused to do that when the prophets of Baal had been praying to Baal? They were begging him for fire. Remember when Elijah said, you just go down there and build this altar. Now pray to your God and see what happens. What would have happened if Elijah said, no, I can't pray to my God on the same day that these prophets of Baal are praying to their God? Instead, Elijah starts to harass them a little bit. Well, maybe he's asleep. You need to be louder. Maybe he can't hear you. Shout louder. Maybe he's away. Maybe he's relieving himself. Maybe he's on a walk. Maybe he's on sabbatical. It just encouraged them to scream louder and shout louder. The argument for remaining silent is not only illogical. I'm going to say this flat out. It's just plain stupid. The time you should be praying and thanking the Almighty is exactly when the pagans are doing their chanting and they're dancing to their gods of wood and stone. Why would you choose to be? Why would a believer choose to be silenced? Really? Is that what you're going to do? You're going to roll over and play dead, be an ostrich, stick your head in the sand, and say, "Oh, I can't compete with those people who are praying to a different God." That's what you're giving up. That's what you're doing. And it comes from ignorance. Even Nehemiah, actually it's Nehemiah, as our youngest granddaughter has a friend whose name is Nehemiah, and we tease her that the proper way to say that is Nehemiah, because that is the Hebrew way of saying it. Anyway, in Nehemiah 2:4, the king said to me, "For what do you make this request?" So I prayed to the God of heaven. Then, he just goes back and he's talking to the king again. Right there in front of the king, he stops. Now, we don't know how long that prayer was. It could have been just a short, I need some help here kind of a thing. But he stops when the king's addressing him. He prays, and then he goes back to speaking to the king. But my point's this: you never pass up a chance to offer thanks, give praise, or seek direction, especially when you're faced with the pagans calling on their idols. We need to be vigilant that you do not allow the blind people to cause you to fall into the ditch of ignorance. I wrote that the other day. I thought that was pretty good. Do not be guided into the ditch of ignorance by blind people. They will drag you down there every chance they get. We need to stop being concerned with offending people when we speak the truth. We need to be careful how we speak the truth sometimes. But think about this. If you are a believer out there, how many prophets spoke the truth and got killed? If you're a Christian out there, and I say that word kind of funny.
You keep using that word. I don't think it means what you think it means.
Coming from with this, right? Right.
You keep using.
But think about that. If you're a Christian out there, you're not speaking the truth because you're afraid something's going to happen to you. Are you following your teacher? In the United States, there is this imbecilic notion that we can fight racism by being racist. That's like trying to overcome evil with evil. Around the world, there is the arrogance of ignorance that somehow people are the problem. Somehow, everything that's wrong with the world is a people problem. And we're afraid to address it. Think about that, though. Look at the weather. We talk about climate change. Well, people cause the problem. It doesn't matter if it's a drought, if it's a flood, if it's too cold, if it's too hot. People caused it. Now, people are the main source of pollution. There's not really any getting around that one. But people are also the source of the solution. Overpopulation. There's more people alive today than ever before in history. So why is there a problem with that? Our Creator commands us to be fruitful and multiply. The only people who actually think that people are a problem on earth are the ones who reject the Creator, and those are the same people that are causing the most problems. These are the folks that lack respect for creation. They're basically hopeless. They choose not to be thankful to anyone other than themselves. They're self-involved, they're arrogant, and they basically have chosen to be gullible morons who refuse to repent for their sins, both intentional and unintentional. Had the Native Americans who greeted the Europeans felt in any way threatened, the Europeans wouldn't have lasted long. Because those first small boats that came, those folks were overwhelmingly outnumbered. There were some Eastern settlers who were massacred by the natives. One of those settlements is not far from where we currently live. Now, some of those settlers deserved it. I'm not going to argue that point. Some of them were the arrogant morons I just mentioned. But some of them were just looking for a place where they could escape the stupidity of their day. The real trouble in North America actually came from Europe, but not in a way you really understand it yet. The real trouble in North America actually came from France, I should say it this way, from the French and the British hostilities. In early North American history, we call it the French and Indian War. When the settlers and the natives were actually getting along in person on a personal level, there was this way that they figured out they could coexist. When they met each other, not in a national way, but in a mankind, human to human way, person to person, they typically got along very well. It wasn't until after the French and Indian War and after the American Revolution that things changed for everybody. So again, how is Thanksgiving offensive to anyone? Well, it shouldn't be. In fact, it isn't. What is offensive is the way that the Europeans treated the natives. But let's be honest, it was far from the utopia in North America that everybody wants to think it was. It was no utopia in North America prior to the Europeans settling here. Natives did fight over places to live. They battled with each other, much like every other civilization in the world. They were people, just like the people on the other side of the ocean. They understood they needed a place to hunt, a place to fish, and a place to raise their crops, a place to raise their family. Not everybody got along. There was trade routes here, just like there was in Europe and in the Middle East, in Asia and Asia Minor. People are people. It's that simple. Nothing changes. Solomon says there's nothing new under the sun. When you meet people on a personal level, there's going to be people you don't like, but it's not that difficult to get along. It's not that difficult to coexist. But people are people. And some people refuse to treat each other the way they want to be treated. They think that it needs to be their way or no way. And if you don't do things exactly like they want them done, well then, you must be some kind of a savage, right? Oh, you don't clip your fingernails and shape them in this kind of a shape and paint them this kind of a way. You don't wear the right kind of shoes. You don't wear the right... You know where I'm going with that, right? And you dehumanize the person who doesn't do things your way. Can you think of a better reason that we should just stop as a nation, even if it's only one day a year, and just be thankful to our Creator for all the blessings that He chooses to give to us? We should be in the position of offering our thanks and our praise every day, for no other reason to remind ourselves that there is evil in the world and we should not be part of it. When we begin to embrace the evil and reject the Creator, we're part of the problem. And that is a true people problem. Believers need to be giving thanks daily, hourly sometimes. But here's the thing. If you choose to participate in Thanksgiving wherever you live, don't make it just a one-day celebration. Make it a lifestyle. Be thankful to your Creator every day. It can be a continual celebration to offer our thanks and our praise to the one who gives us everything that we have. There's no need not to. We have all the examples in Scripture of all of the people who stop and continually give thanks. So, whether you choose to do it or whether you just should do it, make sure that you're giving your thanks, your praise, and your worship to the one who gives you everything that you have. Did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
Everybody have a very thankful and blessed Thanksgiving Day.
All right. Until Monday, we offer you many, many, many blessings. Take care.